A boy named Max comes on the scene as the story of the film starts. He was a warrior. Max was solitary, having no family. Because his family came to end when the earth ruined. So he is surviving alone on this barren land. Max observes some vehicles, driving towards him. Then Max is driving away, getting in his car. But they capture Max, going at a distance. Then they are moving to a place, imprisoning Max. Actually it was the army of brutal man who had captured Max. And that brutal name was Immortan Joe. No government or management remained behind and the world rooted out with its inhabitants. They had no administration, so they were leading the savage life. But Immortan Joe has all the facilities as meal, water, fuel, etc. And the whole administration was being regulated there by Immortan Joe. Immortan Joe's army used to battle for him. Immortan Joe and his army were also infected by some disease. They were not well. They suffered from such a disease in which blood was required for them. The whole army used to consider Immortan Joe as his god. Because they only had fuel, which was their precious wealth. There was nothing except it. Otherwise, there was also the shortage of food on the earth. There were also other tribes except Immortan Joe's. But those tribesmen were thought ordinary. When they bring Max as a prisoner there, they state on his back that he is a universal blood donor. Because his blood group was O negative. Max tries to flee from those people, but he is caught. Then, Immortan Joe is seen, coming outside. He was not at least a human being. Because his skin was too infectious. And he had masked his mouth mysteriously for breathing. Because Immortan Joe's lungs and liver were damaged. So he had a breathing problem. People used to slogan as his name whenever he stepped outside. For a while, he activates the water system and flows it for the people, and all are crowded to take it. And Immortan Joe used to deactivate the water system according to his will. Then a lady named Furiosa appears. In fact, she was the daughter of Immortan Joe. Otherwise, she was also the lieutenant of Immortan Joe's army. Furiosa is visiting his nearby area for a deal. Because time had changed and it was seeming difficult to survive. They had patterned their vehicles according to the war. Furiosa is driving war rig while her army was pursuing her. Furiosa changes his track of driving and does not move to their planned place. Immortan Joe notices it that Furiosa has changed his way to travel. He begins to suspect his daughter, Furiosa. So he moves to a cabin where there is a written statement on the floor that your children will not hold the seat of commanders. Immortan Joe had 4 wives because he wanted to extend his generation and later to teach them the art of war. But Furiosa is driving away, taking Immortan Joe's wives. Afterwards, Immortan Joe alerts his army. Because Immortan had realized that Furiosa has started to revolt. Immortan's army was ready to sacrifice their lives for him. But the great follower of Immortan's army was Nux. Nux was also infected, in which the blood is required for the body. He will be the apple of Immortan's eye who will bring his wives back. So, Nux wanted to prove his loyalty here. Here it is observed that Max's blood was supplying into Nux's body. So, Nux was extremely happy because the blood was required for him. So he takes Max with him. He was taking Max after strapping him to the vehicle. He had also masked his face, and that mask was made of iron. Immortan army begins to pursue Furiosa. War was only the purpose of their lives, left for them. They used to rejoice the battle. Going for the battle, they often played the music in their vehicles. Moreover, they also had the deadly weapons. One more tribe attacks Furiosa when she is moving towards her destination. All warriors had their own pursuit for this war who had arrived at that place. Immortan wanted to battle Furiosa for his wives, while that tribe wanted to battle for that Furiosa's war rig. It had the fuel which was considered their wealth. Nux reaches Furiosa while driving his vehicle speedily. But Furiosa strikes his vehicle. Then the sandstorm breaks out. It was directing towards them. Nux had reached nearer to Furiosa's war rig. Because he had aimed to capture Furiosa at any cost. Even he also thinks about the suicide bombing, so that there may be an explosion and Furiosa's rig stops. They drive further in the sandstorm. Max had knowledge that he will also be dead because of the explosion, so he forbids Nux to do it. At first sight, Nux's vehicles is crashed. Then the sight is shown after the sandstorm. Max had restored his sense, but his face was covered with an iron mask. Moreover, he was also tied with Nux. Lifting Nux up, he moves forward. There, Max observes the war rig of Furiosa. He witnesses the wives of Immortan going there. One of Immortan's wives was expectant. Max points his gun on them. He imprisons them. First of all, Max asks them water. Those girls hand him over water pipe. Then he asks a cutter to cut the straps with which he was tied. One of Immortan's wives helps Max. She tries to cut that chain but of no use. Furiosa notices that Immortan has also joined the people of surroundings with him, and he is moving towards her. Furiosa wants to flee because of having no time, so she attacks Max. Max confronts Furiosa and hits her. Meantime, Nux also attacks Furiosa, coming into senses. Nux cuts the chain of Max while helping him. Nux tries to drive away, grabbing Furiosa's war rig. But that war rig is stopped while covering a little distance. It was not restarting. Actually, Furiosa had set a code in his war rig, and there was a requirement to activate that code after a time. Then that war rig used to start. And Furiosa was only one who knew the code. So they run to the war rig and reveal the whole story of it to Max. Here Max says, "I will only take Furiosa with me, because Immortan is pursuing them because of his wives. And Immortan will stop pursuing them after getting his wives." But Furiosa rejects it, saying, "I will also bring these girls with me, because I am going to a safe place where the chances of survival are possible." Agreeing with Furiosa, Max also takes Immortan's wives with him. They immediately drive away. But Immortan's army was still chasing them. A problem is generated in war rig, so Max repairs it, coming outside. That war rig again becomes operative. Meanwhile, Max removes that iron face mask. It is noticed that Nux had also got in the war rig of Furiosa, and he has attacked Furiosa. Then Immortan's wives assist Furiosa. Here, Furious wanted to kill Nux, but Immortan's wives suggest her, "Don't kill him. He is doing this as being a subordinate of Immortan." So, Furiosa throws him down from her war rig. Furiosa and her people were driving. Lived a tribe there. They were also bikers. And Furiosa had dealt with that tribe that she will bring much fuel for them. In return, they will let Furiosa pass the way safe and sound. And they explode at the starting point of mountain, so the road may block for Immortan and his army. But those bikers of tribe show their anger to Furiosa when they witness a large army of Immortan. They say to Furiosa, "We had thought that there will be a small army unit. But it is a large army." Now Furiosa was getting the wind-up regarding dealing. So she had already informed Max the next step which is to be taken. And she had also revealed that code to Max. Feeling threat, Furiosa signals Max to flee. Max carries it out. He is driving away in War Rig, while the tribesmen of bikers are also exploding there. Because they had thought that Immortan and his army are going to enter their region. Furiosa tries to get in her War Rig, but she is attacked by a biker. Anyhow, Furiosa is survived. Now the way of entrance had been blocked for Immortan. But they were moving forward towards their destination. But those bikers chase Furiosa, because they had got the wind that there is also someone else with her. Because Furiosa had given her words that she only will be the survivor from here. Immortan and his army are trying to move further through the blocked path. There, Immortan witnesses Nux there and also joins him in his army. While bikers were chasing Furiosa and her companions to capture them. Those bikers attempt to set the War Rig on fire. But Furiosa and Max bravely confront them. Immortan is going to fire his gun on Furiosa, moving near the War Rig. Then that expectant lady appears before Immortan. Immortan lets her go because she was going to be the mother of his kid. Being the member of Immortan, Nux struggles to move into the War Rig of Furiosa. Nux is caught at a place because of the chain of his hand. And he had also a gun which has also fallen down. Immortan is infuriated, seeing it. There was also a giant in that army who was actually the son of Immortan. That giant attacks them, using a thrower which hits directly on the steering of War Rig. That steering is going to detach because of the thrower. But that expectant lady cuts that thrower's chain with a cutter. Now the War Rig was again under the control of Max. But that expectant lady is thrown out and Immortan's vehicle was also moving from the backside. He wanted to secure expectant lady, so he adjusts the steering. Immortan stops there for his expectant wife, while Furiosa and her companions drive forward. One of Immortan's wives comes back and witnesses Nux there. Nux, who was disappointed that he has done nothing profitable. But Immortan's wife satisfies him. And Nux's heart pleases. Now Nux decides that he will help out the wives of Immortan. Furiosa reveals her purpose to Max at night. She tells Max, being a child, I used to live in Meadow. This was the cause, its name was Green Region. And she used to live there with her family. Then, Immortan attacks there and he took Furiosa with him, adopting her. She tells, I want to return to my family so I may survive like a human. Because the people are not leading their lives here less than a savage. Then they pass a place which was a marsh where their War Rig is entrapped. On the other side, Immortan's army was still pursuing them. The expectant wife of Immortan was no more. Immortan's man checks that Immortan's kid has also been dead. Immortan loses his temper at the loss of his kid. Immortan says to his son Giant, you had a brother who has dead. Now that Giant's son was telling everyone there while screaming, I had a brother who has dead now. Contrarily, War Rig was still entrapped in the marsh. They were trying to free it but of no avail. There was also a withered tree. Nux says, we may free our War Rig from it through this tree. They notice that Immortan's close companion is moving towards them. So Max targets them with his sniper gun. But it is missed. Then Furiosa targets them. As a result, Immortan Companion's eyes are spoiled and he is left blind.